Okay, you can see me. All right, sure. Let's get this started. Got it. 1 second. It's music playing. 1 second, y'all. All right. Then, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, we thank Almighty God, Allah, for his coming in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. We also thank Almighty God, Allah, for his raising up the most humble and honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we can never thank Almighty God, Allah, enough, or I can never thank Almighty God, Allah, enough for he and the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, seeing that we will need one who is described as a comforter in this day and time, that they actually made the preparation to leave us one in our midst, and that one that's left in our midst is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I thank Almighty God Allah for each of them, and I thank Almighty God Allah for each of you. So today, brothers and sisters, we have as our special guest our brother from Trinidad, right? Trinidad Tobago, if I'm pronouncing it right. He's the student representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he's the Eastern Caribbean representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. So as we go through our brief announcements, after those brief announcements, we're going to get right into the interview so we can hear our brother's testimony. For those who are watching, what we'll ask you to do, please share this video on your Facebook page. Encourage others, tag others that you know will be interested and can benefit from this powerful interview and a powerful testimony that our brother is going to share. And also, as you are watching the interview and things stand out to you, I want you to leave comments. You know, what was it that you heard our brother share that struck you, that moved your spirit? We want to get feedback from you all, but we thank you all for tuning in. And let's just get into why we do what we're doing. Okay. So for our brothers and sisters who may be their first time, this quote by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that was written in a letter to George Bush Jr., the president of that time, you see that on December the 1st, 2001, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said the following, quote, "I write you from my prison, a prison without bars that has been made for me because of the passion for truth and justice of which I speak, and the propaganda that makes me appear to be to many as anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-Semitic, anti-gay. None of these names accurately describe who I am. I hope that you will open your heart to what I am writing, notwithstanding the prison from which I am writing." And you know, this quote kind of gives an explanation to what we're trying to do. In the Bible, it says that Satan was defeated by the blood of the Lamb and the power of their testimony. So we bring guests on who've had the opportunity to interact with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, to observe the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who've had their lives transformed by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We bring them on to give their testimony to help free the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan from this false propaganda that the enemy has been seeking to keep him in, but they have been failing. So this is part of the reason. We've actually done surveys, and as I talk about every Sunday, you see that over 90% of the people who have watched these interviews say that it has helped them in their faith, it has helped them as a believer. We've also seen that 90% have said that it has helped them to gain a greater understanding of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And that's what we're here for, brothers and sisters. That's what we are striving to do, to help people get a greater understanding of our man, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who in the scripture is described as the door, the way, you know, the bread of life. How can you understand the value of the door if you have an improper view of what that door is? So we want to give people the opportunity to see and hear and learn about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. As we go further, let me get this screen. There we go. The impact of these testimonies, this is just one where it says, the testimonials have helped me in the understanding of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan on how to never give up and keep striving for excellence no matter how hard life gets. And we want these testimonies to be able to inspire us to be the best that we can and keep going when life begins to get hard. Someone else says, quote, it has strengthened me because when I hear of the interactions of others with him, some of the testimonials are so humorously animated and heartfelt that I somehow feel closer to him, quote. And that's one of the things we're striving for, because for those believers in the Nation of Islam, you have a blessing today at 4 o'clock Central Time, where you're going to hear about a private message that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan shared on the 17th of September, where he said that all of us who believe and are working in this mission are special. So follow us on YouTube at Mosque46AV. You got your YouTube app, go there and subscribe to our page right now so you can get content. You can get access to content that can help you propagate the faith. Also follow us at Instagram at Mosque_46. One of the benefits of subscribing to our YouTube page is that you get access to this powerful playlist that can give you the ammunition, that can give you the tools, that can give you the rock to hurl at falsehood, that false charge of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan being anti-Semitic. Make sure you get it. You want to subscribe to this page so you can have access to that. We're also building a playlist that's talking about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam as it relates to the history of Malcolm X. Make sure you go to our YouTube page, Mosque46AV, and please subscribe. Then for those who are affected by COVID during this time, send us an email at Mosque46AV@gmail, or send us an Instagram or on Twitter, whatever it is, reach out to us so we can say a prayer for you or your loved ones, whoever name that you submit. And also, we would appreciate any of you all if you can make a donation to our effort to our mortgage elimination drive here in the city of New Orleans. About 2 weeks ago, we were blessed with our brother Jamil Muhammad to raise almost $8,000. And we were able to raise that money to begin to start contributing to our effort to pay off our mortgage. You can cash app us right now. Any little thing that you have, we appreciate it. It all helps. And you can go on GoFundMe. You can also contribute as well. So, you know, as I said, this is the international theme of I Have a Witness, I Have a Testimony, where we want to show our brothers and sisters that the Nation of Islam is just not here in America. We're all over the world. So today we have our brother, he's from Trinidad, inshallah. On next Sunday, we're going to have our brother who's the Haitian representative, Brother Joseph Makandal. But right now, brothers and sisters, who we have with us today is our brother David Muhammad. So let me stop sharing this screen and we can get right on down to this interview. There he is. Assalamu alaikum, my brother. Can you hear me?
Walaikum salam. Yes, sir. Walaikum salam, Brother Willie. And greetings to all the viewers and listeners.
Yes, sir. It is a true honor, man. I've been reading your, in preparation for the interview, of course, reading your bios and different articles online about you. And I can say, brother, you are a very talented brother, man. There's a lot of stuff that you are working and doing in the islands, man.
Well, all praises due to Allah, of course, with the inspiration of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I mean, there's so much more to be done. So we're just continuing to work and strive, inshallah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll start off. One of the interesting facts is that I found out that you were actually born on the same day of our brother who was, unfortunately, he was transported from the city of New Orleans, Marcus Garvey. So how does that feel, man, knowing that you were born on that same day?
It's a great feeling. I was about 8 years old when my uncle had told me that I share a birthday with a great man named Marcus Garvey, and he gave me a Jamaican coin with Marcus Garvey's image on it. Of course, it was so many years later that I learned more about who Marcus Garvey was, and obviously being tremendously inspired by him. And I mean, up to recently, one of my highlights since 2016 is that I've been a guest speaker, and last year I was a keynote speaker at the Marcus Garvey celebrations in Jamaica. And, you know, so almost every year, I'm not in Trinidad, I'm in Jamaica for that great event. It's a massive island-wide, region-wide event. And, you know, it always keeps me aligned with that privilege of sharing a birthday with him.
That's a blessing, man. So
Yes, sir.
yeah, that is very significant, man. And we thank Almighty God Allah for allowing a man like Marcus Garvey to even come to this earth and for the work that he did, which is writing a call to work of the Nation of Islam. So as we're talking about the Nation of Islam, can you tell us how you first came into contact or heard the teachings
Yep.
of the Most High Elijah Muhammad? And then how did you end up becoming a member?
Right. Well, it's such a beautiful story. I was actually born in England. My parents are Trinidadian. And of course, they were over in England as after World War II, in the 1950s and 1960s, there was a brain drain from the Caribbean, in particular, Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, and even places like Antigua, St. Lucia, Guyana, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, where the minister's mother is from. Brain drain over to England as Commonwealth nations. And so I happened to be born in 1970 in England, and then we came back over to Trinidad in 1978. And then I migrated back to the UK in 1991, and I became interested in Islam. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I continue to recommend chapters 12, 13, and 14 to anyone, where Malcolm X really gives his testimony about being in the Nation of Islam and being a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and even having a vision of Master Farad Muhammad. And I gravitated towards one particular Islamic group whom I naturally assumed, seeing they were the quote unquote Black Muslims, that this was the Nation of Islam. And one day they showed, okay, we're just having an earthquake here. They showed a video of Minister Louis Farrakhan. And then I inquired more and found out where the Nation of Islam was meeting. And so I went to the Nation of Islam meeting. The first person that I heard delivering the teachings was actually student minister Hakeem Muhammad, formerly Brother Hilary Muhammad of London. He wasn't the minister then, but he was doing a How to Eat to Live study group meeting. And then I kept going back. And I mean, I more or less joined right away. And then I wanted to take it back to Trinidad. I went on holiday to Trinidad for Carnival, and my wife-to-be, my wife of now 27 years, you know, was with child as a result of my visit to Trinidad. So I looked at returning to Trinidad permanently and starting a Nation of Islam study group. So we had our first public meeting on December 20th, 1992. And on January the 1st, 1993, I actually made contact with Brother Sultan Muhammad of the E-Team, Big Sultan. And we spoke on the phone, and I told him that, you know, it was just myself, and there were two other believers from New York who had moved back to Trinidad to live, who had joined us as well, along with my wife and a best friend. So we started a small study group. And I'll be in constant contact with Brother Sultan. And he will always give greetings from the minister. And of course, we will always be so grateful. I actually had to recite. They set up a forum where I would recite for the two brothers the brother and the sister who already had their ex. So Brother Sultan Muhammad was my lifeline. And then one day in July, he told me that he was chewed out for not letting the minister know what we were doing in Trinidad. And then I said to him, but you always give me the greetings from the minister. And then he explained, well, that's the culture. You know, you give greetings on behalf of the minister, whether he's aware or not. And I was kind of taken aback. And then he said, the minister wants to speak to you. And I spoke to the minister on the phone, for the first time on July 28th, 1993. It was like being struck by lightning, because I never envisioned that conversation. And I was literally paralyzed. That conversation was probably even more of a life changer than actually meeting the minister in person for the first time. Actually, they ran a close second. So in communicating with the minister, and he's, sharing with me, he's counseling me on the phone. About 2 weeks later, he said to me, "You will come and see me soon." Again, I was still trying to process all of that. And then sometime in August, I was told by the minister's assistant at the time, who was Sister Sophia, that I am to come up to St. Kitts to see the minister. At the time, I did not know that it was his anniversary. But flight was arranged, and I flew from Trinidad to St. Kitts on September the 11th. It would have been 1993. I showed up at the hotel, and I was actually relaying this to Brother Joshua the other day, because Brother Joshua wasn't there at this particular time. So I showed up at the hotel and said, "I'm here to see Minister Louis Farrakhan." And as Allah is my witness, the receptionist at the hotel said, quote, "Who?"
Mm.
Now, because for me, all of this was too good to be true. I mean, why me? Why should this even happen? What have I done to deserve getting this privilege? So when she said that, that was more of what I was expecting to hear than, "Hold on a moment, he'll be with you shortly." So I'm thinking to myself, is this really happening? And then I said, "Minister Louis Farrakhan." And she said, "Hold on a second," as if, not knowing what I was talking about. And then she came back about 3 minutes later and said, "He will be with you shortly." I was in my suit and bow tie in the scorching tropical sun of St. Kitts. And so I was waiting in the reception area, and the Supreme Captain, Brother Mustafa Farrakhan, came out. That's when I knew it was real, when I saw the Supreme. And, he greeted me and hugged me and everything. And he said, "The minister's going to be with you shortly." And then a short while after, the minister came out. And that was the turning point of my life. And I was able to speak with him, interview him for 3 hours.
Wow.
A recording which I've had from that time to now. And my first question to him, the first question was, "Did Master Farad Muhammad pray?"
Mm.
And the minister's answer was, "Certainly." And of course, he did not pray to himself. But our prayer begins with, "Surely I have turned myself being upright to him who originated the heavens and the earth, and I'm not from among the polytheists." And that was the beginning of the conversation. And we went into so many different areas. And then, so I spent 2 days. Of course, the minister's anniversary was during that period, September 12th. I would have left on September 13th. And the minister brought me back up to Los Angeles 3 weeks later.
Wow.
For the Healing the Wounds birthday of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And then, I sat next to Isaac Hayes on the stage. This is 1993. I saw Stevie Wonder, Ice Cube, Ice-T, Martin Lawrence, Rosie Perez, John Gill, and a whole host of, mega celebrities. And again, it was a whole dream come true experience. And from that time, I was blessed to be with the minister on average at least once a year from then to now. One last thing I'll share, though,
go ahead.
about the Million Man March. we had a signature campaign in Trinidad where we signed up 4,000 Black men who supported the Million Man March. Of course, we couldn't be there, but we had these old raggedy sheets of paper. We were collecting them for months, and I told the minister about it. And so I attended the Million Man March, of course, October 16th. I had stayed in Baltimore, and I got the train from Baltimore to Washington, D.C., and back to Baltimore the same night. I contacted the minister when I was about to leave Baltimore to go back to New York, which is where my flights were through. And the minister said, "Where are those signatures, brother?" And then I said, "I have them right here." And then he said, "Well, there's a press conference at such and such time," and said, "You need to be there." I forgot about that plane ticket, train ride, arrangements, got dressed, hit the train, and it all worked out so miraculously, because you know what the heavy people traffic would have been like around October 16th and 17th. So I got, again, from Baltimore back to New York, got to the hotel. The press conference, of course, was jam-packed full. No one could have gotten in. And then Brother Rasul Muhammad, son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who had around that time become our regional minister, and we actually brought him to Trinidad a few months before. He got me in, and we were in this crowded, jam-packed ballroom with the whole world media there, and the minister was speaking. I thought the timing was perfect. And so I'm there in the back, cramped up between cameras and other people. And then the minister in the press conference says, "There was a young brother from Trinidad, Brother Minister David. Where is he?" And I heard someone said, I've played the recording a million times, literally. And then someone said, "He's right here, sir." And then he said, "Step up here, sir." And then he said, "Brother David, who is our representative on the island of Trinidad, brought with him a list." And then he said, "How many names are here, sir?" I said, 4,000, the apostle. He said, "They brought a list of 4,000 Black men in Trinidad who said they support the Million Man March." And of course, there were applause. That was another moment that when the sun rose on that day, and I were to be asked what is the most outlandish thing that can happen to you that you would not expect, it would have been that. Because the way that it all happened, the timing of the trains to get to the hotel, to get onto the floor with the ballroom, to get inside the ballroom, it was just amazing. But the last point that I want to make on that, because all of that was 25, 28 years ago. As I say, and when we opened our building, and I sent a short video, just a 2-minute video, to the National Secretary, which he played on the Wednesday night Believers meeting, I closed saying that there is no way, it is literally impossible for me to be able to pay back the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for what he did for me. I was a 22-year-old boy who the minister knew nothing about. I was a total stranger, just someone who was interested in spreading the teachings on the island of Trinidad. And that was, I didn't even know at the time that it was his anniversary, but this was the minister's and Mother Khadija's 40th wedding anniversary. And here I was, this stranger from Trinidad who was invited to spend 2 whole days with the minister on his 40th anniversary. And I say I can never pay the minister back for what he did for me, but what I can do is I could try to pay it forward. And if I could show that same love and compassion and interest in the young people that I see coming up who show any kind of interest whatsoever in the teachings, if I could just replicate that love, just a fraction of it that the minister showed to me, then I would have done a significant job, inshallah.
Wow. So you were with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, like you said, for those 2 days during that special time for him, his
Yes,
anniversary.
yes.
What was some of the things? Was there any specific moment where it was just like a mind-blowing thing, like something that you saw, an interaction between he and Mother Khadijah, or something that he may have said to you? And if so, can you share it?
Yes. Um, on the second day, because for that night, we went up to a family home of the minister. And I remember driving with Brother Salim Muhammad, who passed away recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I mean, the driving was incredible. We were going up these really steep hills in these 4x4s, but, we were up there, and it was mainly family who were around. And, I was sitting on the ground at the side of the minister, and he was teaching so heavily. So that was like, those 2 sessions in that one day was like a week of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. But the next day, just before we were leaving, the minister said I could come and see him, but not record this time.
Mm.
And he said to me that, he said, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is like a scientist, in that every sentence and statement that he made, it can be cracked open and multiple ideas can be extracted from it. He was making a point, because on one occasion, and this was on the phone, on another occasion on the phone, I had asked him, in a very naive way, what is the most important thing for me to teach? And he put to me that, well, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are literally like a medicine cabinet for a people who are sick with a multitude of different ailments, but you have to select the specific medicine for the illness, sickness, or disease that confronts you in the environment that you're in. And the statements that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad made contain within them, like a zip-locked file, so much multiplied, expanded information that you can extract as wisdom and apply it to just about any given situation whatsoever. So, again, that was one, it was inspirational on terms of a thought being shared, but it was also very motivational in that there was a certain degree of trust that was placed on me as a student to be entrusted with, as I said, a weighty word to share with a country, and by extension, a region that had long been so out of touch with the organization, at least the organizational aspect of the Nation of Islam. And that, among so many other things, had stuck with me so much. Interestingly, because I would have interviewed the minister on 5 occasions from that time to now, of which 2 would have been on the media. Right, so 2 would have been on the media, and 3 would have been in private. And the first one, incidentally, was not centered around the Caribbean or Trinidad or Jamaica or Barbados or Guyana, but it was the real hardcore depth of Islam. And I'm happy it turned out that way, because that was basically the foundation for everything else that I had learned subsequent to that.
Wow. So how did 2 questions,
Mhm.
2-part questions. Are you the first first representative for the country of Trinidad and Tobago for the Nation of Islam? And my second part of that question is, when you returned from London and began to start with the deciding to open up a study group, how did you specifically go about, spreading the teachings and getting people to get interested in knowing of the teachings?
Well, I am the first Trinidadian representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. However,
Wow.
in the early 1970s, there was a Nation of Islam in Trinidad under Imam Warithdin Muhammad.
Mm.
And there was a brother there. His name was Sunni Ahmad. He was actually a guest at the minister's table along with us in 2012 when the minister visited. So as far as the so-called second resurrection of the nation is concerned, yes, I am the first representative there. And I mean, in starting a study group, I was on the street. There's a place called Woodford Square, public square, where there's conversations and discussions and public speeches and so on. And I would go there and just start speaking. And, you know, we'll gather a little crowd, and then the crowd will grow bigger. And then we would rent a community center to host a meeting. So the first one that I did was December 20th, 1992. But I would print all these flyers back in the age of paper, you know, distribute these leaflets all over, invite people in. You know, sometimes I'll copy like 1,000 flyers and say, yeah, we're going to have at least 700 people, you know, but we have a meeting with 15, 20 people. And I'm like, what? How is this? You know, I mean, that's how you learn. And then it was really with the Malcolm X movie by Spike Lee coming out that I was invited on to do a television interview, because I was known as David X. I was doing the work for about 4 months at that time. So, you know, they advertised this interview, David X speaks on Malcolm X. They say, wow, Malcolm X has a younger brother in Trinidad. You know, so I went in, and then after that, we announced a meeting that we had, which was probably the first public meeting that we had that would have had over 100 people. And then we continued working from there. Now we went from center of Port of Spain to the east side of Port of Spain, which is the more marginalized, disenfranchised part of the city, where there's a lot of crime in the residential spaces and so on. And then we were there for quite a while. We stayed in East Port of Spain for about 4 years. Then we moved out of Port of Spain and then came back in many years later.
Okay, and that's cool. And I also noticed in doing the research about you, you hold the position as the Eastern Caribbean representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So what countries in the Eastern Caribbean does that cover that you're responsible for?
Right. So the Eastern Caribbean, basically, we start with Guyana, which is on the South American continent, where there's Student Minister Dennis Mohammed, then Trinidad. Then we also have Barbados with Student Minister Abdul Rahman Mohammed. Barbados, the Nation of Islam in Barbados, has a lot of believers that basically took the same step that I did, born in England, parents from the Caribbean. And so they left England to come over to establish a Nation of Islam. So even though I was the only one in Trinidad, along with another brother Simon Mohammed, who's also from London, Barbados has probably, I don't know, maybe between 10, 15, maybe 20 believers in all from England who moved over there. It also covers Grenada, where the minister went in 2012. It covers St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where we have our brother Mikel Mohammed, who is starting a budding study circle. Antigua, where our brother Khalid Shabazz runs a study circle. Also St. Lucia, St. Kitts, which is the home of the minister's mother, of course, and Dominica. So you have basically what are called the Leeward Islands and the Windward Islands, from Guyana, Trinidad, Grenada, Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, Dominica, and Antigua. And it's really bordered by the US Virgin Islands, of course, which is American territory.
Wow, that's a we have a growing significant presence in that area, man. May Allah continue to bless each of you all as well. And I know, like you said, you will meet with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at least once a year. And I know the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan sees the significance of the Caribbean. Was there any advice that he shared with you that would help you to be effective in what you're doing? And if so, is there any part of that advice can you share with us?
Yes. And there was another turning point for me, which was in 2011 when the minister was in St. Kitts. Now, I said I've been with the minister on average once a year for, say, the last 28 years, but I was not with him every year.
Okay.
So I was with the minister in 2001, where I was actually brought up for just under 3 weeks, because as a school teacher by profession, the final call had put out an ad to ask for volunteer teachers. And I volunteered to teach at the Muhammad University of Islam. And when I spoke to the minister, he told me that they had already filled those positions. Oh, disappointment. He said, but I'm still going to bring you to Chicago. And so I spent 17 days in Chicago. Wow. This was in summer in 2001 as a guest of the minister. And somewhere towards it, on around the 10th or the 11th day, the minister actually left to go to Africa. And I accompanied him to the airport. That was for the ratification of the African Union back then. And he told me in the car, because I was blessed to be in the car with him and Sister Fatima, I believe it was. He said, don't be like how I was when I used to come to Chicago to see the messenger. And he said to me, he did not interact enough with some of the messenger's laborers. He said, don't be like that.
Wow.
And so for the remaining time that I had spent there, I was with Grandmaster Anthony every day, literally every day, just moving on. I was also teaching at the When Worlds Collide dojo, came up to teach at the Muhammad University of Islam, ended up teaching at When Worlds Collide, because I am also a second-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. And my teacher was a student of Grandmaster Moses Powell as well. But of course, I'm a student of Grandmaster Anthony, Brother Aziz, now Muhammad. In fact, there was a little joke. I did a whole lot of sparring back then, and I was in a sparring session with Brother Dwayne Muhammad of Mosque Mariam, who's the captain now. And he hit me with an elbow on my eyebrow, and it cut. Wow. And anyone who knows about martial arts, that's a bad place to get cut because the cut opens. And this is the night before I was leaving Chicago to go to Miami. And Grandmaster Aziz, he sewed it up and everything. And we were making this joke about, here I am from Trinidad, coming to Chicago, getting this cut here, and because I'm going to Miami next, and everyone in Miami will think that that's what life in Trinidad is like. But little did they know that happened in Chicago. But that was a really magnificent time. I spoke at the FOI class, couple of the study group meetings and so on. And to be there in Chicago in the absence of the minister, I didn't get to interact with Minister Ishmael at the time then, but I was in and out to the study groups, FOI classes, the Sunday meetings, everything. And so that was the foundation, but the turning point was 2011, because I was with the minister 2001. Then I didn't see the minister again in person until 2005 for the 10th anniversary of the Million Man March. And then I didn't see him again until 2008. Being the former manager of the Trinidad and Tobago national soccer team and being grouped with the United States of America, I had traveled to Chicago twice in 2008 on business. And on both occasions, I was blessed to visit the minister at the palace. And it's so strange because this would have been the first week in September when I went there, Brother Jabir Muhammad, son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, had just passed.
Mm.
And, you know, the minister was reflecting on that. And then I went back to Trinidad and came back to Chicago about 10 days later and visited the minister again at the palace. And this time, Imam Warith Deen Muhammad had passed.
Wow.
And it was so awkward that, you know, spend 4 days in Chicago, one of the messenger's sons passed, go back to Trinidad, come back for another 4 days in Chicago. This time, Imam Warith Deen passed. And the minister was really in a state of visible sorrow over Imam Warith Deen. And then that was 2008. And then I didn't see the minister again until 2011. And it was in 2011 that I've been with the minister on average twice or three times a year from that point on. And this was in St. Kitts. And the reason this was another turning point is because we were, again, at the family home 19 years later or 18 years later. And we were there. Brother Chris Muhammad was there. That's Grandmaster Aziz's brother on the E-team, investigator, Brother Chris. He was entertaining, you know, he's a genius and so multi-talented genius. But, you know, the family was there, Brother Joshua, of course. And at one moment in the afternoon, sitting there, this was December 2011, I just, you know, brought it up to the minister. I said, you know, dear Apostle, it was 18 years ago that I was here with you for the first time. And, you know, I just took the opportunity to thank him for 18 years of guidance. And then he said, has it been 18 years? And, you know, he started to reflect as well. And then, because I'd got to St. Kitts on that morning, so I was ready to leave in the night. The minister said to me, I'll meet with you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Now, my flight was that same night to go back. And of course, forget about the plane ticket and all of that. So the next morning, 10 o'clock, we met at the top floor of some villas. And the minister said to me that he was aware of certain thoughts and feelings that I had because I'd written a letter regarding the Caribbean. And then he shared with me something that was eventually shared briefly in Closing the Gap, but at a laborers meeting later on, about being at the messenger's table and there being a conversation about the Caribbean. And the minister said he left the minister's spoken about this a good couple of times since then, but this was the first time I'd heard it. And he spoke about his connection to the Caribbean and that he cried on that night. And then when we were going downstairs, because we had met for 3 hours, it was 1 o'clock now, we were going downstairs and he said to me, I will come to Trinidad. And really what that meant was that he would tour the entire Caribbean, because he came to Trinidad in March. It was March 25th. Then from Trinidad, we went to Antigua. I went back to Trinidad. The minister went back to the States. And then he was in Jamaica and Cuba in August. And then I rejoined him in November. I was actually sent to Grenada to do initial preparations for his visit. And so I traveled with the minister through Grenada, Barbados, where he spent the longest, and Dominica. And then I left I left Dominica to go back to Trinidad, and the minister went on to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So the minister spent about a week in Barbados. And what a lot of people don't know is that during the time period of Imam Warith Deen, the minister spent close to 6 months in Barbados. He was actually posted there while Brother Akbar was in New York. And said the minister has so many, well, friends and family, but so many people in Barbados who are like personally familiar with him. So when we were in Barbados, the amount of visitors that came to see the minister, I mean, I'm talking about people around the minister's age from early days. You know, it was so unbelievable. And then, of course, it was 2 years after that. Well, the next year, the minister sent me on a tour throughout the Caribbean. It was actually in Barbados that the minister announced my appointment as the Eastern Caribbean representative, because before I was always the Trinidad representative of his. But when we were in Barbados at a press conference, at the head table, he introduced me as his Eastern Caribbean representative. And Brother Rasul had already told me that it was going to happen. But, you know, he made that announcement at the press conference. And he visited 12 Caribbean nations, 12. And everywhere where the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan went in the Caribbean, he met with the Prime Minister or President, opposition leader or governor, members of parliament, all of the officials on both sides, and shared with all of these leaders a great wisdom. And what was so interesting as well is that the minister met with a number of people who were opposition leaders at the time, who actually became the prime ministers of their country afterwards. Dr. Keith Rowley was the leader of the opposition. The minister met with him. He became the prime minister 3 years after. Dr. Keith Mitchell of Grenada, he was the leader of the opposition. He was a former prime minister. He became the prime minister afterwards. Even Andrew Holness, well, myself and Minister Ishmael had met with Andrew Holness on behalf of the minister when he was opposition leader of Jamaica. Now he's the prime minister of Jamaica. And I think there's another such example in there somewhere. But his visits to the Caribbean have been so inspirational. And all of the speeches, we have been able to extract universal wisdom that is applicable in just about every field of human endeavor, from politics to economics to law to agriculture to education to social organization and spirituality. I mean, it was like he left these books of the mind with us. And, you know, it's literally an eternal guidance.
Wow. In one of the articles that I read about you, it also said how during the 19th anniversary of the historic Million Man March, you were one of the people that was summoned to be a part of the think tank
Yes,
to help with the organization of that anniversary. Can you share with that experience? What was one of just mind-blowing experiences in that whole preparation?
You know, that the interesting thing about it was around that time, because I was also invited to participate in the National Council. That's when I would have met you the first time, I think 2016, at the Salam restaurant, where you did a presentation. And I was sharing with someone recently, just going off on a tangent for a short moment, that you shared, because I mean, I've been studying the Hadith for years and years, but you shared with us a Hadith that I'd never heard before. And it was so on point for what was happening in Trinidad.
Wow.
And when I heard you share it, I had to go and research it. But you had said to us in 2016 at the Salam restaurant at the council meeting that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Shall I inform you of what is better than prayer?" And one would think, well, what could possibly be better than prayer? And then you said, it is making peace between
Yeah.
brothers who are in conflict with each other. And of course, that stuck with me and, has been a very, very, very important teaching point.
Great.
So around
Okay.
that time, I was from 2011 in the company of the minister a lot more. So I was with him in 2011. I was with him about twice or three times in 2012, in 2013, and then 2014 came. And in planning for the 19th anniversary of the Million Man March in Jamaica, there was a group of us, which included Minister Clive from Jamaica, Brother Khalid Shabazz from Antigua, Brother Nuri Muhammad from Belize. This is a different Brother Nuri, who is now an imam under the messenger. He was under the messenger in Belize back then. Of course, Minister Ishmael Muhammad, Brother Gerald Pereira from Guyana was there, Calypsonian, Gabi, and Brother Abdul Rahman from Barbados, of course. So, and we would have these meetings. We had about 3 or 4. We were there for a week. And, again, we'll sit with the minister and he will share guidance with us. He'll give the guidance. And we would basically take the knowledge of the geography and current affairs within the Caribbean and, do our best to establish this format for the Jamaica trip. And it turned out, again, to be historic. In my book, Black Studies, the Black Book Mind Revolution, we did a summary of all 21 study guides. And at the end of the summary of the bullet points from the 21 study guides, we had the speech from October 19th, 2014 as almost like a study guide number 22, because there were sections on, again, politics, economics, law, business and trade, international relations, regional cooperation between CARICOM or all of the different Caribbean countries. And just being part of that whole planning experience was, again, another dream come true. At the end of the week, we were each given some private time with the minister. And, at first it was canceled because of obviously how exhausting that full week would have been. And then the minister said, no, he wants to give everyone, their own time. So imagine being in a think tank every day. We're having these meetings, about 9 of us around the table. And then at the end of all of that, the minister still gave each of us some private time with him, and you wonder where the energy comes from, but we know where the energy comes from.
That's amazing. And that will lead me to my next set of questions, because we do these interviews with the hope of getting people to share testimonies and unique experience where they see that show the love, the various qualities of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that makes him such an effective leader, such an effective servant of God. When we talk about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's love, is there anything you personally experienced or you witnessed during those Caribbean tours that just was like, man, look at the love of this man? You just shared one with meeting with everybody after those meetings, but are there any others that you can share?
So many. I mean, of course, the first one for me, being brought up to be part of the minister's 40th wedding anniversary back in 1993. Also with our building project, the minister took such interest, personal interest in our building project, because interestingly, Brother Akbar Muhammad was in and out of Trinidad between 2012, 2013, 2014. And we went looking for plots of land with Brother Akbar. But when we finally got 3/4 of an acre of land from the state, Incidentally, Brother Akbar hasn't been back to Trinidad since. But I remember telling the minister, the apostle, we got land. It's a sizable piece of land. It's in East Port of Spain. It's right where we want to be. And, we're about to build. We're going to start building. And so, the minister would always take a special interest on how far we were, how the progress was coming along. He actually sent money for all of the windows.
Wow.
So all of the windows that we see on that beautiful building that we have, was sponsored by the minister. And towards the end too, he made sure that we were on track. And of course, for the grand opening, he was so personally interested. Now, I have noticed from being with the minister in Trinidad, but also in other parts of the Caribbean and everywhere, literally, he shows such an individual compassion for every single person. I'm talking about the police officers who were on the escorts with us, the workers in the restaurant, everyone whom he sees, he seems to have this compassion for. And I know you asked me about, me witnessing personally that, but there's a story that was shared with me that demonstrates that, which I would like to share. It's a story that was...
Feel free to share whatever comes to your heart as it relates to that. Share it.
Yes, sir. We were actually in Antigua, and we were staying in these villas, and we were up overnight. It was myself, Brother Rasul Muhammad, son of the messenger, and Captain Anthony Muhammad from Philadelphia, right? Not Grandmaster, but Captain Anthony from Philadelphia, right? Martial artist. We were up overnight around the table, and we were just talking. I mean, you can imagine how beautiful those days were. It would have probably been the same day that the minister would have done a main address, because Antigua was another tremendously successful visit. And the Supreme Captain was next door. So it could have been close to 1 o'clock in the morning. We get a knock on the door. The Supreme comes in. And then he sits on a fourth chair. So now it's 4 of us sitting at this table. Now, for at least an hour, the Supreme didn't say a word. He's just listening, and he's like sitting back, and he's looking at each of us who are talking. And then he opens up and just starts sharing. And now, of course, we're just exclusively focused on him. And he was sharing so many great experiences with us. But one in particular that stuck with me, which I loved. I mean, I laughed so hard the way, but I'll relate as he said. He said they were in Russia, right? And really, he was talking about the attempts and intentions on taking the minister's life. And in Russia, there was all this hostility, as you'd have heard about. Minister explained it in Savior's Day 1998, What is Islam? When, the government got the military to escort them out, and the Muslims came out ready to put up a military challenge against the army of the state. And in the midst of all of that hostility and love, because remember, they honored the minister with gifts. They gave him the sword. They bestowed him with so much honor. But when they went in the private plane, they're about to close the doors, and Brother Mustafa was telling us about a white man, big white man, who came in the plane. Brother Akbar would say, "No, you can't come in here. This is a private plane." And he was insisting. And the Supreme got up and said, "No, you can't come in here. And then he said, the minister said, just completely nonchalant, completely, unbothered by it. He said, the minister said, let him in. The way he said it, I could have just heard that and imagined that. Here, this man is looking like a major risk, right? And what made me laugh the most was the way that the Supreme described him. He said, quote, he was the biggest devil I've ever seen. He said, I almost fell on the floor laughing at that, trust me. And then imagine this man, say about 7 foot something, comes in the plane with the minister. So they're telling him, no, you can't. And then he's insistent on coming in. And the minister says, just let him in, fearing no one but Allah. And then the episode took place where the control tower in Russia, I think it was Moscow that they were landing in to get the international flight out, was guiding them into the mountains.
Wow.
Do you remember that? The minister
Yes,
spoke about it in 1998.
Yes, sir.
And that they had them circling around until they ran out of fuel. And the pilot had no idea what to do. It was over some forested area, no lighting, no guidance. The control tower was not corresponding with them. And I mean, the Supreme is explaining to us this was a straight up attempt on the minister's life. But guess what happened, Brother Willie?
You mean to tell me the big man that got on the plane is connected to him? What?
No, the big man who got on the plane saved the plane.
Wow. Look at Allah.
That same man who looked like such a menace, the Supreme said he went into the cockpit and guided them wherever and got them safely to Moscow. And when they landed, peace, he went his way.
Dang.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable, man.
We don't. I mean, it's part the emotional intelligence of the minister to be able to sense whether or not there's some either threat or an adversary or evil intention, because to let him in that plane at that time would have been, it would have went against whatever safety protocols would have been implemented to preserve the minister. But that turned out to, and again, it was out of love.
Wow.
It was out of love that the minister wasn't even thinking about them being guided into a mountain or being sabotaged. All the minister would have been thinking about was the man needs a ride, let him come in. And of course, I mean, there's so many cases like that, so many stories like that, hundreds of stories like that. But the way that the minister is able to take a personal interest in so many regular people's specific issues and concerns. I mean, if you mention something to the minister about a member of your family, or something as simple as a child that you have who was about to sit an examination, or someone who was ill or sick, and you speak to the minister 7 or 8 or 9 months later, he remembers it and will inquire on that to you. And it's not only having a fantastic memory, but it is also having genuine and sincere compassion and concern for our people.
Wow, that's beautiful story. So, and we talk about the testimony. So if you had the opportunity where you were called up and you were asked to stand before the world, somewhere on CNN, whatever, just where your words are going out to the world, and you were asked to highlight and explain 3 qualities of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that just really resonate with you, that just show the essence of him, what 3 qualities would you mention of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and why?
Wow, that's an amazing, an incredible question. But I'll just say what comes to mind first.
Yes.
First thing I would say is the intergenerational relevance of his wisdom.
Mm.
Because there are people who know about the minister now, but you could isolate the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's work in the 1960s alone,
Mm.
just the 1960s, nothing else, and we can claim him as a great man.
Mm.
You could take the work of the minister for the 1970s alone. Forget about the 60s, forget about the 80s, go up. Just the 1970s. And we can say during that period by itself that he's one of the greatest among us.
Mm.
And then if you move on from the 1970s to the 1980s, just the 1980s, we can say he's definitely a living legend. Power at Last Forever, October 7th, 1985, culminating from underground work that was done in the 8 years prior to that. But when you go on to the 1990s, just his work in the 1990s, and I'll even go as far as saying even before the Million Man March, you could say that he accomplished one of the greatest feats ever, which was to take close to 2,000, 3,000 Black people from the West back to Africa for the October 9th, 1994, fulfilling the vision of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at the Black Star Line Square in Accra, Ghana, where tens of thousands of our people gathered. But at no other point, only with the idea of Marcus Garvey back in the 1920s, has anything like that been accomplished. And Marcus Garvey had it as a thought. What was done on October the 9th, 1994, was the fulfillment of a vision, an idea that was held in the minds of great men, but a mission that was executed and accomplished by the greatest man among us. And then came the Million Man March. I mean, we're about to come up on the 25th anniversary of this, and every single occasion has been monumental. And then we come into the 2000s. And in the 2000s, we had the Million Family March, October the 16th, 2000. Then we had the Millions More Movement, October 15th, 2005. Then we had the 9 ministries: health, agriculture, education, justice, information, science, technology, business, trade and commerce, security or defense, and arts and culture. And then all of these task forces on management and housing and youth development and foreign affairs. All of this coming out, these are like seeds that were planted that were now germinating and unpacking and producing fruit. And then now you come into this last decade that we just went, where you see an impact now on people's children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. You have a whole generation of Black people that were born when the minister started teaching in 1955 that are no longer with us. You have whole communities that were born, educated, rose up, did great things with their life, and they are gone, and their children are with us now, all educated by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Grandparents, parents, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. You're talking about an intergenerational relevance that you have not seen in probably any icon that has walked among us within the last 50 years, period.
Wow.
Period. Because every other great one among us has had an era. They've had a time or a time zone. The minister has transcended all of that. And now you have a new crop. This is what, probably generation number 4, or generation number 5, or generation number 6 that are being taught by the minister. So that's the first thing.
That's a great analysis,
that comes up. Secondly, I will say his global reach and his global relevance. again, many great individuals, and I'll use the term in parenthesis, leaders, tend to have a geographical relevance which extends only ideologically outside the boundaries of the location from within which they work. So you have had people, for example, like Nelson Mandela and Barack Obama, who are known worldwide. But Nelson Mandela or Barack Obama or any of the other greats that we could think of, icons of that magnitude, they don't have movements, organizations, followers, laborers, and direct assistants and helpers across the planet. The minister has been able to transpose the wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, present a message called the Black Agenda on July 17th, 1988, which was acquired by two young men in the Gambia in the early 1990s, who studied it, made a policy document out of it, and became the president and vice president of a whole country in Africa.
Wow. Off of the minister's words.
That same speech, the Black Agenda, I took as the title of my radio program back in 2002. And from it, we formed an organization in Trinidad called the Black Agenda Project, which was the organization through which we acquired the land for the mosque that we've constructed. And again, taking those ideas, it was a tape of the minister, Power at Last Forever, Madison Square Garden, October the 7th, 1985, that a group of believers, well, weren't believers as yet, a group of conscious young men in the late 1980s in London, England, heard. And they took that message, power, and they actually formed an organization called Power, which eventually became the Nation of Islam in England. So here you have Africa, England, then the message spread across to France. For the Criterion, July 4th, recently, the message was relayed in Germany, Holland, Spain, now all across the Caribbean, from Jamaica, Bermuda, the US Virgin Islands, up in the north, all the way to Trinidad, Guyana, Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, Antigua in the south. And you have a whole global spread, and that we have not seen in our lifetime of anyone else who has that international outreach. I heard you have Brother Joseph McCandell.
Yes.
Next week, representing Haiti. We have our beloved brother, Brother Vladimir Muhammad, representing the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's my second major observation of the minister, the global outreach and impact of his work. And then third, after the intergenerational relevance, second, the global impact, third, I would say his personal compassion, how he has forgiven those who have been so adversarial against him. And we really saw this with the Million Man March. You know, a lot of us see we heard basically the announcement for the Million Man March for Savior's Day, February 1994. And the minister has referenced that when he said the word 1,000,000, he looked at it, it came out, and he couldn't pull it back. But it was really the year before that the idea of the Million Man March was born, because there was the 30th anniversary of the March on Washington that was led by Dr. Martin Luther King. And the 30th anniversary was taking place in 1993. The minister was invited to give a keynote speech And then at the last minute, of course, I remember it was Jesse Jackson. It was then head of the Congressional Black Caucus, Kwesi and Fume. You had Maxine Waters, Benjamin Chavis, who was head of the NAACP, and a powerful think tank who invited the minister to speak at the 30th anniversary of the March on Washington. And then they were forced to disinvite him or to withdraw the invitation because of course, those who had influence over the political Black leadership. And it was at a reparations conference with the same group about a month later. This would have been September 30th, 1993, where the minister brought that up and he said, well, if we had the kind of strength that is required for us to possess as a Black community, then we should have leadership that can be fueled by the power of self-determination and not be limited or restricted in our aims, goals, and objectives by the intention of an outsider looking in or an enemy who comes presenting himself as a friend. And it was then, September 30th, 1993, that the minister said that he was going to have a march after being withdrawn from the 30th anniversary of the March on Washington. And then fast forward to Savior's Day, February 1994, that's when he made the announcement of a 1 million man march. Now, we're talking about the compassion here because I was in New York about 2 weeks before the 1 million man march. Back then, anytime I came to America, I'd go to New York. And I remember persons such as our beloved brother Al Sharpton and Baltimore Mayor Kirk Schmoke and others basically ill-speaking the idea of the 1 million man march.
Wow.
And then when October the 16th came, all of those who were on the committee for the 30th anniversary of the March on Washington, those who were ill-speaking the idea of the 1 million man march, those who were trying to cry it down, the minister opened his arms and gave all of them an opportunity to appear on the stage at the 1 million man march, and for each of them to address the largest audience that they would have ever addressed before in their entire lives. So that spirit of forgiveness, love, and compassion for our people was demonstrated by the minister there. And if we could just reproduce one iota of that when it comes to the conflict that exists between us and our own communities, then we would have gone so far in accomplishing this great work, because of course we lack forgiveness. You would know that in dealing with the gang violence and conflict that exists among our people. So those three factors, I know it has taken a bit long in expressing them, but the intergenerational relevance of the minister, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, young, old, so many generations that the minister has not only taught, but been directly relevant to. His international geographical outreach, where everywhere where Black people exist, the minister's voice has found and struck resonance with them. And then behind the actual message itself, there is an individual, interpersonal compassion and love that is like the fuel or the fire behind, or the engine that moves the minister to accomplish that mission. Because were it not for that love that he has, he would not have touched us in the way that he has.
And the way that you just put that, personally for me, I have never heard anybody explain that like that. The intergenerational, and even as you were talking about the impact of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words, how it was the basis of the study for people who are now holding leadership positions in their country, high leadership positions. And even what I love about what you have done and what you are doing in Trinidad is that you have taken aspects of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's words and you're making something tangible, right? Because when we were in Houston one time, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said at the table, he said that Allah blesses me to he blesses me or communicates through me many good ideas. He said, oftentimes, however, they remain in the idea stage because you all don't take them and go and do anything. But you, and can we talk about this? 2 more questions. You all have, with the 6,000 square feet building, you raised $700,000. The building is now worth 7 million. And it's all, as you said, was inspired by the lecture where he talked about the Black agenda. So can you talk to those who are here about the actual building and that what you all are doing?
Mm, mm. Yes, sir. Now, it was when the minister was in Trinidad in March 2012. He spoke about the economically depressed side of the city of Port of Spain, the capital city of Trinidad. And he said, when you go through many of our communities, he said a lot of our residential spaces look like a mouth with teeth missing. And that appearance within itself, one, devalues the worth of the property, but two, attracts undesirable conduct to exist within those spaces. Then he said, we have to find a way to develop where we live, even if the government is not willing to step in as they're mandated to do and assist. Then he called me up and he said, I think we can trust this brother. Let us, with some good people around him, open up a national savings trust to buy land and develop our communities for Black people. The audience roared in approval. And then it was 1 year after that, for May 26th, which is African Liberation Day. 2013 was actually the 50th anniversary of African Liberation Day, which started in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, under Emperor Haile Selassie, May 26, 1963. So there was a worldwide observance for the 50th or golden celebration of African Liberation Day. And we decided in Trinidad to launch an annual event for every May 26th that we will have our African Unity Conference. So we had the first conference on May 26, 2013. And on that day, we launched this fund. That was around the time where Brother Akbar would be in and out of Trinidad a few times, and we would look at different plots of land. It was just under 2 years later that we actually got land from the state by applying to build an education center, a cultural center, a learning center, an institution. And we were granted land by the state. And so the money that we had raised thus far, which was not that much, but the money that we had raised, we used it to do the frame and the roofing for the building. But it was through the free labor of the FOI and also the assistance of the MGT that we came out, mixed cement, laid bricks, painted the walls, put in the windows, the doors.
Wow.
Before all of that, we actually had to cut down some trees, drag them off the compound, level the land, because part of it was like a jungle. We did all of this with our own hands. Now, it was from the minister introducing to us the idea of opening a fund for land. You see, and it goes back, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Our Savior Has Arrived, has a chapter entitled God Helps Those Who Help Themselves. And, if you take one step towards Allah, he'll take 2 steps towards you. We opened a fund to buy land, and then we got land granted.
Wow.
Which which we probably wouldn't have even gotten if we weren't even thinking on that train in the first place. And that idea was in the minister's mind, shared with us based on his observation of East Port of Spain and Trinidad society. And then we set it in motion. And so it took us about 2.5 years to construct. And we opened the building on African Liberation Day, May 26th, 2018, which was just 2 years ago. And I mean, every year we've been having this conference on May 26th.
Wow.
And so, of course, this year we had it virtually, but, you know, again, the power of ideas. One of the most memorable messages by the minister was done in October 1994, entitled Belief in Allah, which was done. It was the first speech that the minister did at Mosque Mariam after coming back from Africa for fulfilling the vision in Accra, Ghana, 1994, taking 2,000 Black people back to Africa. And in it, he spoke about vision. And he explained the difference between a thought and an idea. And that a thought could be an impulsive reaction to seeing or hearing something, but an idea is when a thought goes through the developmental stages to actually be transformed into something tangible. And he said, many of us have underdeveloped thoughts, which are good thoughts, but just never get the opportunity to bring those thoughts into fruition. And, you know, it is for that reason that I say that the mind of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is like a university. It within itself has libraries with different sections and floors. It has classrooms. It has different faculties and departments. It has different courses and different subjects and topics and subtopics that you could go in there and extract from those archives, which go all the way back to 1955 and even before that, because a lot of what we got in what the minister has identified as one of his greatest teachings, How to Give Birth to a God, parts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, a lot of that wisdom was developed prior to 1955. So you have this mind that all of us have the privilege of having access to. The question is now, how do we take maximum advantage of his thinking process? And the best way to do that is to take those ideas and try to transform them into action, because from a thought comes an action, from an action comes a habit, from a habit comes a character, and from a character comes a destiny. But it all begins with the way that you think. But the mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's fully opened. And Jesus said, so a man thinks, so is he. But if we're thinking in a faulty, dysfunctional, negative way, then our actions, habits, a character, and destiny will also be negative, faulty, and dysfunctional. So we are living in a privileged time to still have that fountain flowing. And of course, within the next hour or so, we'll be blessed to be able to hear the message from September the 17th.
I know. And that's why, on this last comment, and something that you just, in your last comment that you just said, it made me think about something that you're going to hear the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan mention several times in that talk about the 7 I ams, him being the bread of life. And how, which your last words brought that to my mind about what we need to do. So one announcement, and then we're going to close out on this last question. For those who are watching on Facebook, those who will be watching after we run this and we put it on YouTube, I need you all to start leaving some comments in the comment section. What are you all gaining from this interview? What stood out to you? What resonated with you? Please do so. And the last question, my brother David, I really enjoyed this and just your responses. if you had to testify about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's greatest impact on you personally, what would it be?
On me personally, I would go back to that issue of memory, or that which would appear to be an extraordinary memory with a storage
Oh, jammed on us.
capacity and capability. You
Wait,
right.
It stopped. It stopped. Can you say that? Go back. His memory.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Call just came in. Sorry about that. So it's beyond what would appear to be his extraordinary capabilities of memory storage. The amount of data that is contained in his mind is beyond superhuman. But it is not just that. It is the fact that there is a sincerity in his thought process, a
Keeps
genuine desire to see Black people, to see all of our problems resolved and to come back to a state of wholeness. That is why his brain works the way that it does, not only because of the genius factor, but because of the sincerity, the love, the compassion, the dedication, the commitment, and the loyalty to the Black struggle and to see the upliftment of humanity. That is what I believe empowers his thinking to be able to have the kind of brain that he has. So yes, from a psychological or from an educational, philosophical point of view, you can analyze the biology of his mental capabilities, but that's not only what we're looking at here. We are observing in motion the personification of love and commitment to a people.
Wow. Wow, my brother. Thank you, man, for what you shared. And we're going to download this, inshallah, and put it on YouTube. I'll make sure you get the link. And I'll also send you a message because I would like to speak to those brothers and sisters in the other parts of the Caribbean that you talked about, because they have a testimony as well. And this is all a part of telling our story, man. But, you know, may Allah continue to bless you. I'm seeing somebody they said, thank you, brothers. This has been a historic event that the few of us have witnessed. Not only, let me get the full comment. This is on this is on Zoom. Said not only the quality of the questions have been very good and matched with high informative answers, very informative answers, but the history has been enlightened herein. Is so important that most of the believers are probably unaware of the various of our circles. That is true. I don't think, brother David, that many believers in the nation know about those study circles and study groups in the eastern part of the Caribbean, you know, and that is very significant. Sister Sharon said, pertinent information makes one to be more diligent and effective in the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I thank you, my brother. And you know, New Orleans is a city that's heavily influenced by the Caribbean. So, man, if there's anything that we can do, please let me know. May Allah continue to bless you. May Allah continue to bless you and the believers in the mighty work that you all are doing to help make the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's word bond in a very significant geographical area on this earth. All right.
Thank you so much, Brother William. I want to urge you as well to please continue the great work that you're doing, especially with our youth in conflict, with the gangs, with some of the ideas that you're sharing, and also with this forum that you share with us on a weekly basis, which I enjoy very much. I want to thank you so much as well for the opportunity.
Thank you, my brother. And may Allah continue to bless you and your family. Give the believers the greetings of Assalamu alaikum. And for those brothers and sisters who are on Facebook, please leave some comments. What did you gain from this? And thank you, my brother. And go and enjoy that lecture that's about to be shown in about 26 more minutes. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.